What's going on, guys? This is Lior and welcome back to my channel. Now, what I thought I would do in this video is give you guys an example of how on one of my first permitting deals in a new city I was operating in, I lost basically around $20,000 through a poor vendor that I chose. So I'm gonna give you guys the story of what happened, and then hopefully if you guys are doing new construction or any sort of large renovation projects, this gives you insight on some of the mistakes to avoid. So with that, let's get at it. What's going on, guys? My name is Lior and welcome back to my channel. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of the video, two super quick things, guys. Number one, if this is your first time on my channel, first of all, welcome. Second of all, make sure you smash that subscribe button. I put out tons of content here, everything from multifamily investing to real estate development and everything in between. So if that's the kind of content you're looking for, make sure you subscribe. So let's get right into it. And like I said, what I'm gonna do is give you guys a story of how, on one of my first deals in a brand new jurisdiction, I was doing a ground up single family new construction home that I'm finishing up as we speak, how using the wrong vendors cost me about $20,000. So as context, this is a new city. Like I said, it was a new city I've never worked in. And, we were permitting basically a 6,000 square foot single family. It's going to be awesome. I mean, it's finishing up now. It's going to sell for a huge price point. I'm very excited. But at the time, I was working through my documentation to get the building permit. At a high level, some of the key players that you're going to need if you're working on documentation for a building permit for new construction, first is of course going to be architect and structural engineer. And then second is going to be civil engineer. Very, very important for new construction. And because this was a new jurisdiction, what I decided to do is ask for referrals from my GC that I'm partnering with to get those contacts that know those jurisdictions and have worked in those jurisdictions. So he referred to us the architect and civil engineer. Now the architect was awesome. She's right from that local town, so she knew all the code, was able to come up with plans super quickly, and overall I've been pretty happy with her, right? I mean, no issues from my end. But the civil engineer that we had hired for this particular project ended up causing us a lot of issues. And I'll talk about two key mistakes that he made that really caused us a lot of turmoil. So first, one of the things the civil engineer was responsible for was do a water table reading of the lot. And basically through the water table reading, from his readings and the way he did the testing, what he told us he found was a very elevated water table in our particular lot. And it was kind of weird, right? Because there were some new construction projects close by, and nothing that we've heard about for that area. But, at the end of the day, the testing showed what the testing showed. And the outcome of that, which really kind of sucked for us, was that we would have to build a pretty large retaining wall and elevate the actual structure quite a bit in order to avoid the water issues. Now, all of that work, all of those extra additions between the elevation, the retaining wall, was gonna run us somewhere in the vicinity close to $40,000, $50,000. Now, the second issue that came up was one of the things that you need for your building permit, especially when you're doing a single family, is you need a stormwater management plan. So basically, the civil engineer will come up with a whole stormwater management design, and then typically they will submit that to the city, who's, the engineering department there will typically review it. Now, again, the reason why we decided to go with this particular firm is because they were pretty close to that town. It sounded like they did a lot of other work for that GC in that town. So it seemed like a pretty good match. But the problem that we ended up finding out was the city absolutely ripped into our plans. And essentially the kind of low down feedback was it was really poorly done. So we were kind of stuck in a pretty tough spot, right? Because we've already spent quite a bit of money with this engineer. But, the fact that, this supposed experienced engineering firm that was doing our work all of a sudden just got really bad feedback from the city really lit a red flag up to me, right? Because if you're experienced and you do a ton of this, obviously there's always gonna be some comments and feedback, but the fact that the engineering department basically said this was kind of crap really made me nervous. So what we ultimately end up doing, it was a very tough decision because we're right in the middle of working through our building permit. We wanted to obviously get that as soon as possible because we're just, we're sitting standstill on construction financing, which is not cheap. Ultimately, we made the pretty tough decision to go with another firm. So I ended up talking to a few other folks in the area, and we ended up getting referred another civil engineer that basically redid both issues, right? He did new water table testing as well as new stormwater management plan. And ultimately what we had found out was that water table was not as high as originally thought. So that saved us quite a bit in terms of having to do a retaining wall and all the additional elevation work. And then the new stormwater management plan and the accompanying civil work that came with that was submitted to the city. There was a couple of minor revisions, but basically wrapped up pretty quickly afterwards. Between going with the original firm, then getting rejected, waiting for the city, getting rejected, then having to go switch to a new firm, all of that probably cost us somewhere in the vicinity of 2 to 3 months of holding costs, right? Which again, on construction financing note, is not cheap. We also, of course, had to, basically make duplicate payments on the engineering side. So all in all, that probably cost me in the vicinity of 20, maybe even a little bit more. I'd have to crunch out the exact numbers, but it basically cost me a ton of money. So what's the ultimate lesson here is, look, I mean, even if you've experienced in doing projects and you've done a bunch of projects, if you're going into a new market or even a new city within your market that you haven't worked in before and you're using new vendors, you need to be extra diligent, I think, right? Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to just be like, hey, not, you're not necessarily fighting with anyone, but you just want to make sure that the results make sense and nothing's getting missed, right? So don't be afraid to push back. Ask a lot of questions, right? I should have probably really questioned that a little bit more than I did, the original results. And really don't be afraid to just, really figure out what's going on, who can I really trust ultimately, because, all these vendors, the architect, the structural, the civil engineers, and there's some other ones that you need for your permits, of course, they're really, really critical in the process, right? And if someone's doing a bad job or if someone's not doing good work, it's going to mess up, it's going to cause you a lot of pain financially. It can really mess up your projects. So make sure you stay extra sharp, especially if you're using brand new vendors. So hopefully that lesson is helpful for you guys. Again, this cost me quite a bit of money, but we made it through. It's gonna, ultimately the project I think is gonna do really, really well. I'm excited. It's wrapping up as I'm filming this today in summer 2024. But again, that should have definitely been something that I'll avoid in the future. So hopefully that's helpful for you guys.